from the News Channel 5 Network. This is OpenLine.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to OpenLine. We're doing really one of my favorite things. We're talking about movies tonight. And my hope is, at the end of the night, you will have some new movies that you will want to see. We will be talking with the president of the Music City Film Critics Association. So this is obviously an association of film critics right here in Nashville. They have just looked at all of the movies from the past year and handed out their awards. So we'll look at their nominees for Best Picture, Best Action Film, Best Comedy, all these different nominees, and also list who they picked as the winner. And in the course of the conversation, hopefully we'll all get a better idea of some good movies to watch. Happy to have with us Sean Atkins. He is president of the Music City Film Critics Association, joining us via Zoom. Sean, hello.
Hello, Ben. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, and I really am happy to be talking movies. Let's start first with the Music City Film Critics Association. You're president. What is the Music City Film Critics Association?
Well, the Music City Film Critics Association, it's an association comprised of over 30 professional film critics working in and near the Nashville, Tennessee area. We've been around for 4 years, and we just announced our 4th year of award or nominees and award winners.
And you even had a hat. I noticed Music City Film Critics, they have a hat.
Well, I made this one for just me. I have had people in the association inquire about if there's enough interest, I'll order more. But yeah, I had this one specific or specially made for me.
All right, that's great. Now we're gonna get into the movies, you know, top movies of the year, best picture, that kind of thing. But how would you characterize this year? Obviously, we're still coming out of the pandemic, still in the midst of the pandemic. How would you characterize the movies this year, and what influence did the pandemic have on this year?
Well, I think this year, and especially with our Critics Association and the choices we made, there's so much variety, 15 winners across 24 different awards that we gave out. And I think it just speaks to how exceptional the year of 21 was for film, anywhere from the smallest indie film, biggest blockbuster. I think it was a great year, and the film industry as a whole is still recovering from the pandemic. There are still challenges as to what will generate money for studios, what are people seeing, and there's all this discussion, right, to what should be going to streaming, what should be, or what will be in movie theaters, or what should be in movie theaters. So that still is much up in the air right now as it's ever been, and I think the pandemic accelerated that in terms of the options are now, there's more options than ever to see films. And there's so many different options for people to watch, not just television. And for people, it's all about trying to get as many eyeballs on whatever and whatever makes money for studio, et cetera. So it's still challenging, and we're still trying to figure out exactly what the studios are going to release. Because, of course, we want to see more than just the big budget stuff. We want to see the small things, but it's all about how the studios market it and getting the word out and seeing actually go and see it or wait until it's available at home.
Now you're breaking up just a little, but I'm getting the gist of what you're saying. And maybe if it continues, maybe we'll take a break and try and clean things up. But before we get into the movies again, would you say most of the movies that you all were talking about that are nominated by Music City Film Critics Association, are most of them, did they play only in the theater, or were they online? What about that, how that worked? Streaming?
For that, any film that was released in 2021 or considered under a studio's 4-year consideration banner for the award. So some things might seep into 2022 that are coming out for the public to see, but critics and screeners might go out at the end of the year for the critics and for members of guilds and associations to view. So typically it's any film that's released in 2021 or any film that's under the studio's for-year consideration banner. So that is how we determine that. And as far as streaming or theatrical, for the most part, it would have to have some technical presence to it. We do have some films that's kind of a case-by-case basis on streamer if they're getting a theatrical release. So, but luckily we haven't had any kind of controversy or anything of that nature come up. So.
No, and I saw that you announced these winners online. There was a lot of response. I mean, there's certainly people are looking to these different film critics associations, right? There are film critics associations all over the country. Different cities have different film critics associations. Nashville's somewhat new, but there was a lot of interest in who was chosen, what was chosen by the film critics here in Nashville. Is that right?
That is correct. When we started this association about 4 years ago, former President Clint Redwine, he got the ball rolling on this. He had good relationships with studios in the firms, the studios, to help get us this access once we had the association, and we started building up year by year. And we're continuing to have a bigger presence and advertisements for films that are trying to generate awards, but to the final stretch, which is the Oscars.
All right, let's take a look at the list of nominees for Best Picture. So these are the films that the Film Critics Association here in Nashville nominated for Best Picture. And there you see them. Belfast, Come On, Come On, Coda, Dune, Licorice Pizza, The French Dispatch, The Harder They Fall, Power of the Dog, Tick, Tick, Boom, and West Side Story. What do you think of this list of nominations?
I think nominees, I love the variety. And there's comedy, drama, action, romance, Western, musical. So the variety is great. And while people like only specific genres, I like variety personally. I know a lot of people do in our association, and I think it speaks to the variety and how much different tastes the association has based on the nominees that we have.
And where could you watch these? Like Coda, isn't that Amazon Prime? Did that have a wide theatrical release? Or where could you see most of these movies? Were they in the theater? Or you could see most of them sitting in your home if you have the right streaming service. Is that right?
Yes, it depends. So for Coda, that was a film that was released by Apple TV Plus, and it did have a limited theatrical run. It was showing at the Bell Court at one time here in town. Most of these others, if they were only available in the theater, they would be available to stream, rent, video on demand within 30 to 45 days. The theatrical window is always changing, going from theater to streaming. But some of these films, like they might get like a small theatrical release before they go into streaming, like the Netflix films that are listed as Best Picture nominees. The Harder They Fall, The Power of the Dog, Tick, Tick, Boom. They would get a window to be in theaters before they hit Netflix.
Right, they're in theaters for a short time. Okay, all right, so that list of movies kind of sets the table. Those are the list of movies that were nominated for Best Picture. We're going to take a break and try and clean up the video feed, and then we'll come back and talk about what won, and we'll go through some of the other categories, and we'll talk about each one of the movies in that Best Picture category. So just a lot of fun talking about movies. Take a break. Be back right after this.